Good afternoon, everybody from Europe. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. Welcome to this EUDR Compliance Countdown webinar. This is our fifth webinar of a kind of general series in the EUDR, FSC EUDR series of webinars. Thank you for joining. We had this webinar this morning as well. Before we go on further, I would just like to do a bit of logistics. So this webinar is available in French and Spanish. So if you want to listen in on French, please click the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen, your Zoom screen, and pick French or Spanish, whichever language you wish to listen in on. And my suggestion is that you also mute the original audio, and then you'll get clear sound as well. So who are we? We're FSC putting on this webinar. Many people know us, but some people don't. So just to recap, we've been going for 30 years. We are the world's most trusted and rigorous forest certification scheme and system, trusted by businesses, consumers, NGOs alike. And some of those people who do trust us and are with us are on this webinar presenting as well. So before we get started as well, one more thing around logistics. Most of this webinar is being recorded. So we will be recording all of the presentations up until the part of our competent authority colleague in Germany, Lucas, and they have an institutional policy not to record. So we'll be stopping the recording. Then Lucas will then present, and we'll ask him a few questions in the Q&A, and then we will restart the recording for the rest of the Q&A as well. So that's how the recording is going to work. That means there's no chat function available either. So any questions you have, please post them in the Q&A. This morning we had many questions. We did do very well answering the questions. There is a team behind us in the back answering questions, writing them into the chat and responding. There are a number of questions that the speakers also want to answer live, and we'll be trying to take some live, but also there will be there's a team in the back answering some of the questions as they come in. So and we're going to focus on the speakers presenting as well. So what is this webinar about? Oh, there we go. So sorry about that. Let's just go back a few slides. Right, so the latest on EUDR, FSC solutions, certification and alignment, EUDR enforcement and Q&A. Now the latest on EUDR. We arrived here about half an hour ago to prepare for this webinar. And the latest on EUDR is that there was a press release half an hour ago from the European Commission indicating a proposal for a delay of EUDR. Matteo is going to pick that up in his presentation at the end of his presentation. What that in reality means for all the work that we've been doing, all the work that business has been preparing for, etc. as well. Now, this is only a proposal, I would say. Doesn't mean that there will be a delay, and we need to make that point clear. That doesn't mean there's definitely going to be a delay. It currently is only a proposal, and Matteo will pick up the details around that in his presentation. And he's going to be our first presenter, give you an update of what's happening from in the Commission bubble. We are a member of the platform, and he's going to kind of give you a voice, give you an insight into that world. Then we will move on to Mauro, who will be talking about certification and alignment through a study that they published a few months ago. And then we'll be, Lisa is our next presenter after that, looking at how WWF are also supporting businesses with their EUDR business guide. Then we'll look into our solutions, and Udit is going to speak on FSC solutions, and then homing in on the risk assessment, which is our current priority at the moment in terms of our solutions development. And then Lucas from the German Competent Authority will also then be speaking about how they're getting ready for enforcing the EUDR. So that's our road for the next hour and 15 minutes. We did extend the webinar, if you didn't hear, to 75 minutes. So we'll be closing at 4:15 Central European time. And with that, I think it's time for hand over to Matteo. Matteo, over to you.
Thank you, Nand, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Matteo, and I lead FSC EU Affairs and Engagement, and I'm tasked today to share you the latest from the European Commission that actually became the latest from the European Commission, as echoing Anand, European Commission as 30 minutes before published a press release. So the purpose of my presentation is actually to share what we heard, the latest that the European Commission presented during the last EUDR multi-stakeholder platform. FSC, I've mentioned this point in other webinars, and I'm going to repeat it today, is a committed member of the EU Commission EUDR multi-stakeholder platform, and we have joined the platform since day one. Now, this platform took place on the 24th of September, and the Commission clarified that there would have not been any delay, and therefore EUDR moves forward. Now, the Commission has issued this press release. This is only a proposal of a possible one-year delay. And I want to clarify 2 points. First point is that the EUDR is already into force. This is only about a possible postponement of the applicability of the EUDR rules of the EUDR. And also this proposal needs to be agreed by the co-legislator, meaning by the European Parliament and the Council of the EU, because the EUDR is an European law, and that still needs to be agreed. This is also a great opportunity for me to emphasize that FSC stands behind the EUDR. We support strongly the EUDR, and we have also worked tirelessly, and you will hear about our solution to develop solution ahead of the EUDR application deadline, which for now is still 30 December 2024. Now, as you can see in this slide, Yeah, as you can see in the slide, we wrote 89 days remaining. Even if this day will change, nothing changed about the main message of this slide, because once again, EUDR is already into force, so the focus is about implementation. In order to make an European law a reality, what really matters is the implementation on the ground, and we all need to play a role in that. So the question is, for now at least, how ready do you feel? Are there any information that we're missing? Any particular documents you would like to receive? We would like to hear from you. So please stay with us till the end of the webinar, because there's going to be a survey. We would like to ask you questions, and we would like to hear from you. So please bear with us and stay with us till the end of this presentation. Now, focusing on the implementation, the European Commission has already published a number of implementation tools. In terms of implementing tools that have been already launched, there is the EU Observatory on Deforestation and Degradation, and then a Team Europe initiative, which is a joint initiative between the European Commission and EU member states about capacity building and about outreach with regard to selected information of the EUDR and its impact on partner countries. Then there are implementing tools that have been launched, but the European Commission needs to further specify them or need to complement them. And I'm speaking about the FAQ. We're waiting for a new version. New communication materials are expected. The due diligence registry. There are information available. However, this will become live by the end of the year. And then EUDR competent authorities, many have been nominated. We're still waiting for the nomination of other EU competent authorities. And then there are implementing tools that have been mentioned by the European Commission, but they need to be tabled. And I'm referring at the guidance document, the country benchmarking, which is supposed to be delivered and finalized by the end of the year, and of course, the EUDR review. What I'm going to focus in this presentation, I will be covering some of the implementing tool. I'm not going to cover every single implementing tool mentioned in this slide, but of course you are welcome to ask questions in the chat, and we will try to answer as best and as fast as we can. The first point I would like to cover is the due diligence registry. As you can see in the right part of this slide, you will find the roadmap. What is important is what it is, the due diligence registry. This is an online tool where operators and traders, meaning companies, can submit, amend, and retract due diligence statement. This is particularly important because it's really about demonstrating that the products that fall into the scope of the EUDR, for those products, due diligence has been performed. So it's really the essence of this regulation. Training session have already started on the 25th of September. Registration will begin in November 2024, and the registry is set to be open to all users by the end of the year. There are also very useful training videos available, so we do encourage you to have a look at the European Commission website and have a look at this video, because they really show how the due diligence registry will actually work in practice. With regard to the due diligence statement, we received useful updates from the European Commission, because for the first time, the European Commission clarified a number of limits concerning the due diligence statement. First one is about the reference that can be done per due diligence statement. And this is a point that can be helpful in order to support downstream players. They can reference due diligence statement made by the upstream player. And the max number of reference per due diligence statement is 2,000. Now, the maximum number of commodities that can be mentioned per due diligence statement is 100. The maximum number of scientific names per commodities is 500. The maximum number of production places that can be referred per commodities are 1,000. And then there are also limits about the file size of the geolocation data that needs to be submitted via the GeoJSON format. And the file size limits is 25 megabytes. Speaking about the geolocation requirement, which is one of the novelty of the EUDR, one of the main requirements of the EUDR, this is about indicating the exact origins of material, indicating the exact origins of products and materials. And this is possible by either drawing an areas on the map that you will find in the diligence registry, or by providing the exact coordinates individually or in a bulk. In order to facilitate compliance, the Commission has also made possible to copy or reusing the geolocation information. And as mentioned before, the coordinates can be provided in a bulk, in a file, but using the GeoJSON standard format. Now, the European Commission, prior to the launch of the due diligence registry, has also given the opportunity to companies to test the submission of GeoJSON file. We can share further information about this in the chat, but essentially there is an opportunity to submit at least 3 GeoJSON files, so then the Commission can analyze the submission and actually share feedback with interested stakeholders. And the Commission has shared feedback with us about common mistakes that usually happen when submitting the GeoJSON file. So one of the first mistakes is that they were submitted PDF, and the Commission cannot process PDF, but only GeoJSON file. The map, they were not really drawn properly, or they were not really closed. That's also another mistake. And now we know that, of course, there is also a limit in terms of the file, the size of the file, and there were files that were exceeding the limit of 25 megabyte. Now, in terms of communication materials, there are already a number of communication materials that have been provided by the European Commission, as you can see in the right part of this slide. One of the main novelty, and we encourage you all to subscribe, is the new EUDR newsletter. My colleagues are posting as we speak an hyperlink in the chat, so we encourage you all to subscribe to this hyperlink, to the EUDR newsletter, so you can receive directly the latest from the European Commission. As I mentioned before, also the Commission is working on a guidance document. This guidance document will encompass 11 chapters. And essentially, the guidance document will specify certain aspects of the regulation. For example, the role of schemes within the regulation, certain definition, the matter of legality, and so on and so forth. This Commission is also working on a new round of FAQ. There are already some FAQ already available in the European Commission website. The Commission is supposed to issue as soon as possible 40 new FAQ. And after that round, the Commission is already working on another round of FAQ that are going to clarify common question asked by the stakeholder in order to be compliant with EUDR. The Commission is also working on new communication materials to clarify certain misconceptions around EUDR. In particular, the Commission will clarify a specific rule for small and medium enterprises, and the Commission is also working on new visual, on illustrated supply chain models. At the same time, a little disclaimer, the Commission has told us that it will be impossible to capture all the complexity and the differences of all supply chains. So this will only serve as example in order to learn and then to use this learning for the application of the EUDR. I'm towards the end of my presentation, and I want to re-stress once again the EUDR, it's an European law. However, its impact is set to become global. And that's the reason why the European Union, together with member states, has launched Team Europe Initiative. This is a coordinated strategy which is about empowering partner countries before the EUDR rules will become applicable. There are new fundings now in place. The funding should range around, as we speak, around 81 millions of euros. Among the countries that have provided fundings, there are the Netherlands, France, and Germany, and there are also new countries within the scope of Team Europe Initiative, such as Brazil, Uganda, Burundi, and Peru. Team Europe Initiative is a very comprehensive strategy because it includes different work streams. There is the hub for deforestation-free value chain, which is about outreach and dissemination of knowledge. There is the SAFE program, which is about capacity building via specific project with a specific focus on smallholders and indigenous people. And then there is also the technical facility, which is implemented by the European Forest Institute and is about addressing and also disseminating knowledge around technical matters, for instance, around geolocation. This is my last slide, but last but not least, during the last EU Commission EUDR multi-stakeholder platform, the European Commission has clarified that schemes, certification schemes, in particular those that are aligned with EUDR requirements, can be and are definitely a supporting tool for companies. They can help companies and then can facilitate companies' compliance towards EUDR. What you see in this slide is our latest solution. It is called efficacy aligned for EUDR. My colleague Woody will further explain this part. So of course, also important to remember that being certified doesn't automatically exempt companies from carrying out their due diligence obligation. But once again, in particular for the schemes that have made an effort to align with EUDR requirements, schemes can be and are definitely part of the solution and can support with compliance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. So Matteo has just ended with about how the possibility of schemes can be used by the Commission and credible schemes. So what does a credible scheme look like? Well, luckily we have Mauro here to help us. Mauro, please introduce yourself and the study that you did and tell us how it relates to this work. Thank you.
Many thanks, Anand, and good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody, depending on where you're attending from. I'm Mauro Masero. I am Associate Professor at University of Padova, Italy, and I would like to share quickly the key findings of a study we did with a bunch of colleagues at Padova University in assessing how voluntary sustainability standards, including FSC, can actually address and cover EUDR requirements. And well, to do so, we developed a full research that you can actually find in its full version online, published as a paper last 3rd of May. And here you have all the references, and in the chat you will find also the web link. So what we did basically was to perform an assessment to identify the extent to which voluntary standards can actually deliver products which are deforestation-free and are produced in accordance with the EUDR requirements. And to do so, we actually developed our study focusing on 5 selected voluntary sustainability standards. And specifically, we selected them from standards belonging to the ISEAL family, so the family of standards which are kind of members of ISEAL, and which are having within their scope specifically products which are falling within the scope of the EUDR, so commodities and products which are subject to EUDR requirements. More specifically, we ended up with 5 standards being fair trade for coffee and cocoa, as you see, efficacy for wood and rubber, Rainforest Alliance, again, for coffee and cocoa, the Roundtable on Responsible Soy Association for soy, of course, and the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil for palm oil. And in order to assess these standards, we developed an assessment framework building on EUDR requirements taken from the regulation itself, and performed a desk-based study by collecting, reading carefully, and checking all standards, procedures, guidance documents from the 5 selected standards. And just for you to get a better idea, this is the framework we were developing and considering. The framework is organized into 3 main principles. The first one being about requirements, making clear that commodities and products are actually deforestation-free and produced in accordance with the EUDR. Principle B is more on traceability and information collection and gathering requirements and risk management along the supply chain. Principle C is a little bit beyond EUDR requirements, as it is focusing mainly on the governance structure, transparency, accountability of the schemes. And under each principle, then we were considering multiple criteria for a total of 8 criteria, each of them being further defined through indicators for a total number of 24 indicators. And just for you to have a better understanding, here you have just a detailed example for principle A, and namely for one criterion, which is requirements for deforestation-free commodities and products. And here, the indicator, one of the possible indicators, would be the fact that the voluntary sustainability scheme presents a clear prohibition of deforestation and forest degradation, with different than possible verifiers and guidelines making reference to the cutoff date set by the EUDR. Moving to results, of course, we do not have time to go into details on them, so I will try just to deliver them in a nutshell. And I would like to start from this chart that actually give you a nice overview of the compliance in terms of full compliance, partial compliance, or non-compliance of the full set of requirements by each of the 5 selected standards. And even from a glance, you can see that efficacy is standing as the best performing, let's say, standard, in the sense that it has no red areas, so no non-compliance areas, and it's covering about 60% of the total set of requirements, which is the green bar, with 40% being just partly covered. If we consider more in detail this compliance, that is, if we consider each indicator, then we can analyze principles one by one. If we focus on principle A, so again, making sure that we are considering products which are deforestation-free, as you can see, there is actually some partial compliance in the case of FSC due to the fact that while FSC, of course, is absolutely contrasting forest conversion, and for sure is not allowing forest conversion for areas that are hosting high conservation values, for other areas, exceptions can be granted. That is when the conversion just affects a limited portion of the management unit, when it's aimed to produce substantial long-term conservation and social benefits in the management unit, and when it's not providing any damage or threat to high conservation values or sites which are supposed to produce them. When it comes to the second principle, principle B, which is more about traceability, as you see, FSC is definitely the best performing scheme among the 5 considered. In this perspective, a key aspect is about mixed products, that is, products missing certified and uncertified inputs, where control wood is providing robust, let's say, evidence, robust guarantee about the origin of the non-certified proportion. Moreover, FSC is used in different COC systems, while other systems are mainly used mass balance systems. And last but not least, when it comes to the third principle, which is about, as I was mentioning, transparency, accountability of the systems. One aspect which is important is a public summary of audit reports. FSC is performing well on that. However, this is mandatory for forest management and control wood and not for COC. Anyway, this is something FSC is already well covering. So to summarize in a few take-home messages, the results of the research, let me first of all stress that voluntary sustainability standards are, of course, not from the very origin intended to cope with EUDR. They have different rationale, aims, origins, and scope. So this is something that shall be taken into consideration. So it's not surprising that none of the 5 targeted systems is fully covering EUDR requirements. Nevertheless, as I was stressing, we identify different profiles and performance levels by the 5 schemes, with FSC definitely showing the higher coverage, that is no full gaps and higher degree of full compliance. This is, to some extent, probably also to be linked to the lessons learned from the EUDR experience in the past. At the same time, I would like absolutely to stress that our study was published May this year, so about 5 months ago, which means in the meanwhile, additional actions and measures have been taken by FSC and also the other schemes. We will see details about FSC regulatory module and risk assessment framework within this webinar. But this is to stress that the gaps have been further closed in the meanwhile. And as a last take-home message, I would like to say that FSC, and more generally speaking, voluntary sustainability standards can for sure not provide green lane for the EUDR, but still they can deliver very valuable support towards EUDR compliance and beyond. And this is my very last message, including the fact that I invite you also to take a look to this project, which is carried out by several academic and non-academic partners, providing specific training on EUDR. That's it from my side. Of course, I'm fully available for any question, comment, or curiosity you may have. Thank you.
Excuse me for a minute. I've come down with a little bit of a cold, so I just needed to have a cough there. So thank you, Mauro. That was a really clear presentation. I think there is a few questions already popped up in the chat. So if you could scan them and respond in writing to them, that would be very handy and we can get them through. We're doing pretty well on the questions up to now. We've answered 30 questions and still have another 37 to get through as this webinar progresses. So we heard from Mauro last about certification schemes and how they can potentially support, or what their fit is with EUDR. We want to move over to Lisa now. Lisa works for WWF, and there's an EUDR business guide that WWF produced and launched it over the summer. And Lisa's going to be talking about that, and which includes kind of a take on certification itself as well. And how they would propose certification is used as part of EUDR compliance. Lisa, over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Anand. So I'm Lisa King. I am the responsible supply chains lead for Forest Forward. It's our corporate engagement program on forests. And just briefly before I get into the guide, for those of you who don't know us as well, WWF is a global conservation organization working in over 100 countries. And really our main mission is to stop the degradation of nature's ecosystems and create a world where we live in harmony, people and nature. And most relevant to the discussion today is really this pillar of our work on renewable natural resources and ensuring sustainable use. And so just really Forest Forward, as I mentioned, is our corporate engagement work. We have 3 main action areas where we help companies reach ambitious targets on improving forest management, as well as responsible sourcing and investing in forest landscapes. And so as part of this program, we developed this guidance. But before I go into that, I did also want to kind of take a step back on why WWF works with companies as well. I think we've long worked with FSC. We were one of the founding members, trying to get kind of setting the standard, high standards for best performers, going beyond sort of the legal floor. But we've also worked a lot on actually advocacy for the EUDR, to try and shift this whole way of working. And this is kind of, I mean, the EUDR is shifting a paradigm of how we do transparency and traceability. And so I think as WWF, we also see this delay as kind of a step back in that progress of moving companies forward, because the urgency is today in terms of deforestation. But that's also why we created this guide, was really to help companies see the practical ways of implementing this law and learning from best practice. So into the guide, specifically what it is, it's actually a set of different documents. So we have a detailed step-by-step guide, which includes leadership guidance, and I'll come back to that a bit later in the presentation. We also have a readiness assessment document, which is really to help you as companies see where you're at in your journey to compliance. Also, some templates on due diligence procedures, as well as record keeping. Now, I realize for most companies, you'll have your own systems or you'll have to adapt these. So again, these are really about providing ideas and thoughts on how you can do this. And finally, we've also developed some commodity specific annexes. So we have one on cocoa, palm oil, rubber, and timber. And these are kind of go into some more of the details, specificities, which apply to each of the different commodities. So coming back to that longer document, what we tried to do is break EUDR compliance into different steps. So the first step would really be about understanding your supply chain, understanding and engaging your suppliers. So this is where we provide some diagrams to help you picture that, as well as some tables, diagrams, also to understand your obligations. We see a lot of questions from companies trying to understand, what do I need to do? What is my role in UDR? And so this is trying to answer some of those questions. Also, so step 2 is kind of taking a step back, ensuring you have senior management support on this journey to compliance, and also ensuring you have the right policies in place. So for this, we really lean on work that's been done by the Accountability Framework Initiative, as well as some of our own work on what a policy looks like for deforestation and conversion-free supply chains. And then the bulk of the document is this third step, which is providing some ideas on really how to do information gathering, as well as risk assessment, mitigating risk, but also all the other kinds of procedures you need to put in place as part of a full due diligence system. So the EUDR has requirements around record keeping, internal audits, as well as publication of these reports. So this is trying to give some ideas, practical ideas of how to address these different procedures. And finally, the last step is about ambitious implementation and registering statements. Now, I think as Matteo already mentioned, the European Commission provides guidance and FAQs, and really the text of the law should really be your go-to initially. As much as we provide guidance, the European Commission, again, is the place to get all the latest information. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, one key part we wanted to include in this guide was to have leadership practices throughout the guide, but also this dedicated appendix to go into a lot more detail of how we see UDR also fitting into a broader perspective and approach to deforestation conversion-free supply chains. So we have a first point, I think, which is a really important, especially today, having companies engage in advocacy. Advocating for ambitious implementation. We know that things need to change with regards to the way we manage forests today, the way we manage ecosystems, and so having companies take that leadership role, as well as including zero conversion. If you're going to be putting in place a traceability system, you might as well do that extra step to look at other natural ecosystems. We go into some of the new technologies that have been developed on scientific testing. So specifically for timber, for example, being able to identify species, origins, and how useful those can be in risk assessment and mitigation. We detail a little bit as well the different types of supply chain management tools, so satellite tools, traceability tools, and we spend more time, especially what we call these first mile approaches. So all these tools and methodologies to really look at how we can really include smallholders in these supply chains. I know it's the case on a lot of supply chains. Smallholders are a large part of many of these commodities, and yet there's a temptation to go towards simplification, especially with a law like EUDR. And so we really want to make sure companies are using this also as an opportunity to better engage smallholders, to support mapping, to support understanding, to also support shared benefits. We've been doing some work on ensuring that smallholders get the benefits from from supply chain incentives to incentivize better agricultural management. And there's a lot of things companies can be doing in this space. And then also, as Anand mentioned, credible certification is also an important part in this journey. And I think FSC has done a lot to develop systems to align with EUDR and support FSC certified certification holders with engaging in EUDR. Different certifications have done similar things. And I think this is where credible certification was going beyond legality, and now we see laws progressing, and we want to ensure that certification is not just a volunteer, but also brings in mainstreaming, whether it's transparency or traceability. And finally, a last couple points we did want to touch on as well is just also the need for companies to engage in landscapes, whether it's through science-based targets or other kinds of investments. Again, that can be through development of FSC certification, among others. And I think in there we just had, again, speaking of first mile tools, this really is an important part, and I think it's interesting to discuss how this can connect with tools like FSC Trace. And so that's probably a bigger discussion, but I will stop there for now.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Again, I think just looking at the questions, I think there's a few coming for you. If you could have a look and answer them, that would be fantastic. And we can keep that flowing. We're doing pretty well on the questions front. We've answered 48 and out of the ones that have come in. So we've answered more than there is currently open. So that's great. We will take some live at the end. So if you as a panelist would like to answer live, just please select that to answer live and we'll come back to that at the end of the webinar as well. So Lisa, thanks for your presentation about the EUDR business guide that WWF has produced and how and some of the aspects that you think certification schemes should look at as well going forward as well. And we believe at least that some of those things have already been picked up in our solution development. And at this point, I'll hand over to Udit, who will be presenting a bit more about our EUDR aligned package and solutions taking forward. Thanks, Udit.
Thank you, Anand. Welcome, everyone. My name is Udit. I'm part of the Performance and Standards Unit at FSC International. So FSC Aligned for EUDR was built to help certificate holders and organizations in meeting the EUDR obligations. It consists of three essential elements. FSC certification being the core of the solution that we are offering. FSC Aligned certification is an add-on standard covering specific EUDR regulatory expectations. And FSC Aligned reporting is a technology add-on that will allow certificate holders to gather and report data to demonstrate conformance with the regulation. Together, these three elements form the holistic solution by FSC, which helps organizations to meet their respective EUDR obligations. The FSC's regulatory module is a powerful add-on designed to address EUDR specific requirements. EUDR is a highly complex regulation consisting of more than 300 clauses. And as mentioned before, EUDR requirements are already covered by regular FSC certification. FSC experts have translated the additional ones into this module that complements our regular certification. It is going to be a guide for organizations to traverse through the complexity of EUDR, enabling organizations to address EUDR obligations in a familiar format that is well known to those who are already using and working with FSC standards globally. The EUDR has heightened the importance of risk assessments for organizations. The FSC has for long had a robust system of conducting risk assessments. Previously, FSC risk assessments were primarily used by the control wood certificate holders. However, this has changed with EUDR coming into effect. All operators are now required to conduct risk assessments. In this changed landscape, FSC risk assessments offer a unique solution to certificate holders to evaluate risks within their supply chains. At the core, we have our FSC's risk assessment framework. This is a normative document that defines a set of requirements about how to develop a risk assessment. What this means is how to gather and assess indicators and risk thresholds to assign risks as either negligible, which means small amount, or non-negligible, where non-negligible risk means risk mitigation would be required. The framework basically shows how to do this, and the how operationally is achieved through our risk assessment templates. This is purposely a plural on templates because I mean both full and simplified templates. They are both based on the same framework, which forms the foundation for the template, and the templates can be used as individuals, can be used by individual certificate holders and also by standard developers who are using the framework to develop risk assessments for the countries or at the regional level. Both these types of risk assessments are further supported through our digital tools, including FSC Risk Hub and FSC's degradation platform. These tools are currently under development, and we'll be sharing more information with you on this in due course of time. So we are currently also working on rolling out FSC trays. Some of you have already posted questions about it in the chat. FSC trays will complement FSC aligned reporting for EUDR. It will enable certificate holders and organizations to produce due diligence statements and reports automatically. With FSC aligned reporting, compliance reporting for EUDR is envisaged to become more efficient, even for complex and highly dynamic supply chains, such as pulp and paper. This convenient feature of FSC trays will be launched by the end of the year, and we are looking at providing interoperability with companies' in-house systems and also with the EU's reporting platform. Please stay tuned for more updates on FSC trays. Over to you, Anand.
Thank you very much, Udit. Thanks for that update, and to zoom in a little bit on the work we're currently doing on risk assessments in particular. Again, quite a few things have come in on the Q&A, so if you could have a look at them. I know you've got your team working in the background to answer some of that as well. That'd be great if we can get through as many questions in writing as possible. Let's go back to this packaging question. Still quite a lot of unclarity around the packaging. So Matteo, maybe you can complement what Lucas said. Packaging in or out, or when it is in or when it is out.
No, I agree with thanks, Anand, for the question. I agree with Lucas' answer. And this is clarified in the FAQ. So when the product, even if it falls into the scope of the EUDR, is only used for packaging, so to transport another product, then would not fall into the scope. A different thing is then, even if it's a packaging product but is not used to contain other products, then it would fall under the scope of the EUDR. This might be, we need to check also the new FAQ to be extra sure, but this was the latest news.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, have you, as a panel, it's hard to keep on top of the questions coming in. If there is there a question that you've identified that you would like to answer live yourselves? If you do, please put your hands up. As I think, Matteo, you've picked a one or two as already that you wanted to answer live. So do you want to carry on? And if the others do, if you could raise your hands as well. Unfortunately, in this Q&A and in the chat as well, you can't really raise questions that we want to answer live. So we're just doing the best we can to identify the ones that we have want to answer live. Matteo, go for it.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you, Anand. I will start with, let's say, it was a very direct question. I'm going to just answer this one, and then I would like to give also the opportunity to the other panelists to answer other question. And it was a very direct question because essentially I'm going to rephrase a little bit because I cannot find it in the chat. It was essentially asked why FSC cannot come up with a solution, with a comprehensive solution that will cover everything. And I think this deserves a little bit of clarification, this question. First and foremost, we believe that actually FSC solution is extremely comprehensive. This was presented by my colleague Udit, very briefly presented by me, but our solution is comprehensive because it starts, first of all, from a very strong foundation, so FSC certification. Then on top of that, we have added FSC regulatory module, which actually translates the EUDR requirement into this module. So this is a voluntary model, and if company opts in for this module, they will align very much and will help a lot with EUDR compliance. Then, of course, there is the risk assessment. EUDR, it's really about assessing and mitigating risk, plus, of course, the technological component, which will be unveiled later in the year. Now, we reinforce this message. We believe in our solution. We believe that that FSC can support both EUDR compliance and implementation. At the same time, that doesn't mean that by using FSC, you're automatically exempted of carrying out the EUDR due diligence obligation. The Commission has clarified this multiple times. It's written in the law. German competent authority has also clarified that is the company responsibility to perform the EUDR due diligence obligation. At the same time, FSC, with its comprehensive solution, can support a lot and can facilitate compliance. Given the many obligations, we believe it can facilitate compliance a lot. And of course, we always work towards improving our solution as we move forward. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you. Udit, so there's some questions about risk assessments and like how they are applied, how they can be applied, or so can they only be applied to FSC certified material, or can they be applied to non-FSC certified material that may actually end up in a controlled wood or in a mixed product, for instance, as well? Yeah, and is there any cost for FSC risk assessments? Can you just give a bit of clarity around that? Accessibility of them?
Sure, Anand. Thanks for that question. So FSC has had a long standing record of developing risk assessments to benchmark countries and regions against a series of indicators as defined in our risk assessment framework. And we are currently going through an exercise to revise the existing risk assessments that we have for 60 countries and also adding another 30 new countries to that list to have a voluminous list of 90 countries to be assessed by FSC against a series of indicators. So that's something that is already currently underway. You can track the progress of these risk assessments on the FSC's website. With regards to how risk assessments are used, risk assessments have classically been used in the FSC system for sourcing uncertified or uncontrolled material into the supply chains. But now with EUDR, the importance of risk assessments have increased further. So risk assessments will also be used for material that is coming from certified sources as well, but by using something called the simplified risk assessment template. Therefore, the amount of effort required is minimized to a large extent by using the simplified risk assessment template for the certified material. And the FSC's risk assessments of countries and regions, that's going to be made available on the FSC's Risk Hub. And the first tranche of risk assessments will be made available by beginning of second quarter of 2025 for the first 19 to 20 countries. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I've got quite an interesting one as well. One question that's coming from Mr. Nielsen, Anders Nielsen. How will FSC handle different countries' definition of forest degradation? How are we handling that? That's quite an interesting one, right? Especially given the presentation that Mauro gave as well earlier as well. So how are we handling that?
Sorry, could you repeat that question, please?
Yeah, how is FSC handling different countries' definition of forest degradation? I mean, do we have a standardized definition of forest degradation?
Yes,
or do we adopt
absolutely.
each different country's ones, for instance?
So with the policy to address conversion that was ratified and approved at the last FSC General Assembly, there was a definition of deforestation and also degradation that was part of the whole policy package. That definition of degradation is largely aligned with the definition of EUDR. There are a series of interpretations that have been made available as part of the regulatory module to make sure that this alignment is complete around the definition. So FSC is going to be applying the definition of degradation as per the policy to address conversion, rather than having locally defined or locally adapted degradation definitions globally.
Thank you very much. Matteo, before I come to you, I thought, Lisa, would you mind taking some of the questions around SMEs? Like, there's quite a few questions around when SMEs are in scope and not in scope. And, you know, kind of, I mean, WWF, of course, works with a lot of kind of smallholders and smaller businesses and trying to kind of empower them to get involved in the trade. Can you give us some thoughts on SMEs being in out of scope when SMEs are feeding into larger companies? You know, how does that kind of whose responsibility? How does that work out? How can they be supported? So
there's not one simple answer to that. It really depends a lot on individual cases. Now, there are what I can say is there's situations where SMEs can also rely on, you know, especially if you're further down the chain, you can rely on due diligence that's been done previously. You just have to ascertain sort of how well it's been done. You can also, there's cases, depending on the situation, you can also rely on a larger operator further down the chain from you to do that due diligence. So it's a little bit difficult to give a one answer for that question. But that's something we've tried to address in the guide, but also I think this new guidance that's coming out from the Commission should have, my understanding is it has a lot of different scenarios, and I would really encourage people to go to those documents. I think they've tried to have different situations.
Okay, great. Thank you. Matteo, your hand is up. What do you have a question you've identified?
No, I just wanted to complement what Udi was saying, and also a reminder that maybe if we can go to the next slide so we can show the survey, as people may need to leave. Yeah, just to clarify on the definition of degradation, that the EUDR is a new law and therefore is directly applicable in all EU member states. So there will be essentially one definition of degradation. At the same time, we are aware that this definition is particularly contentious, the Commission is aware too, and the Commission has specified that in either the guidance document or the FAQ, they will further specify the definition of degradation. So this is something that we're all waiting for, and we will carefully study also concerning the possible implication. Thank you.
Okay. So we managed to get through most of the questions. There's quite a lot of duplication in questions as well. So if your question has not been answered, there may be a similar question that someone else has posted that has been answered. There is a lot of duplication. What we tend to do as a reminder is we tend to kind of bucket them up, put them in kind of so any questions on packaging, look out for the FAQs that are coming out from the Commission. That will also give you a better understanding as well as we'll try to add them to our FAQs once we get an update from this webinar, but also how our FAQs fit and kind of are comparable to the ones as well. Now, Mauro, do you want to say any points here, Mauro, as well? Come in on the Q&A on any of the points that have been raised in the chats or the Q&A.
Well, there were actually a couple of questions directly addressed to me, and I was replying to them. There was one that I think might be interesting for a matter of transparency. That is, someone among the audience was asking me when my position as a chairman of FSC Italy stopped in relation to the study with it. I would like to make clear that my position stopped 7 months before the paper was published. So I would say this is an unbiased research. And let me stress that this was done by other colleagues also that are absolutely transparently doing their research activities.
So you didn't do the assessment, someone else did the assessment as such.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
So you coordinated together. Okay, thank you for that. Okay. Anything else that you've identified that you want to make clear? No? Okay. Well, then it just leaves me to kind of really wrap up, actually. So thank you for our panel. As you can see, it was a little bit different this afternoon with the hot topic kind of coming in before half an hour before. So there is still a number of questions coming in around that. And I would just like to reinforce that point. Well, first of all, if you want to know more information about how FSC are looking to support on EUDR, please, this is how to reach us, all the different channels on our website, our step-by-step guide, the email address, and if you just copy that QR code, we would love if you could fill in a short survey to tell us how useful this webinar was. And as we move forward into the next phase of our communications and webinars, we can take this feedback into account and improve them so that they are becoming more and more useful. I just want to say thank you to all our colleagues here as well. I'll start with my left. Udit, thank you for Matteo, Mauro, and our external speakers, Lisa from WWF and Lucas from the German BLE from the Competent Authority as well. Thanks also to all of my team behind the scenes who have been typing to get as many questions as possible as well. And again, just want to make that final point. We did get that news that there's a proposal on the table that's come. It was a press release from the Commission half an hour before we started this webinar to say a proposal to delay the application, I think is the word they use, of the EUDR. That doesn't mean that the EUDR is not in force. It is legally in force already, and it has been for 15 months or so, but the applicability of this law may change going forward. We don't know the details. As I said, we got it 30 minutes before this webinar started. We'll be working it out as soon as we get off this webinar as well to see what that means as well. There are rumors that the FAQs are also to be published today, tomorrow as well with this announcement similarly. So look out, sign yourself up for the EUDR newsletter that the Commission and get the news directly from them as well as from us. Overall, I hope you found this webinar useful. Please fill in the survey. Thank you very much.